Welcome back to episode 42 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Testori. On today's podcast, I had the pleasure of welcoming on Nora Gardner. She is the founder of Nora Gardner, a womenswear brand based in the United States. Her second company, which is very, very new, Living Uniform. Nora is a real inspiration for many women out there. She is an absolute go-getter. She, in this podcast, talks about two competitions that she entered and actually won both of them, receiving her award and sum of money from Tommy Hilfiger himself. Pretty cool if you ask me. She delves into how she had to rapidly pivot her business throughout the COVID pandemic and essentially having to close her stores, her brick and mortar locations. Coming off this podcast with Nora, I was inspired because she has a level of tenacity which very few people have. And I think, especially for women out there, you can take a lot of inspiration from listening to Nora and just feeling her energy. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend. Take care. As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Testori, and the Grappling Growth podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy. Nora, welcome to the pod. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Joe, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So, Nora, I'm curious, what does growth look like to you?
Growth for our business, we look at, as an e-commerce business, we look at a lot of metrics, a lot of KPIs. So the most obvious one is top line revenue. But for us, we look at a number of different statistics, such as our number of customers and not just our revenue, and other statistics such as our average cart size. So when we're thinking about growth, it's not just a linear top line revenue number. We really break it down into these important statistics to pull it all together.
Mm-hmm. And kind of looking at that, the numerical side of things within business, do you think there's any key metrics that a seasoned entrepreneur might look at, such as yourself, compared to the top line metrics that someone new coming into e-commerce might only be hyper focused on, that you could share with people?
Yeah, another part of our business that, I think a lot of new entrepreneurs will think about pushing sales and not focus as much on the merchandising aspect of things as well. So another area we really focus on is getting to know what the customer needs. When I think about sales, it's always about trying to find the need of what the customer for the customer, and even discovering a need that they don't even realize they have, and then convincing them that our product is the best, or proving to them that our product is the best. And then if they bought that item, learning and listening to them to figure out what an additional item could be that they would need. So it's really all about service, from my perspective, is what business is, and finding a need and filling a need. And that's always been my mission in business, to create a product that's useful and the best quality product that I can make that fills that need. And another, something that I heard someone say once is your success in business is directly dependent on the number of people you can serve. And so I carry that with me, and I think about that a lot. And I don't know if it applies to everyone in everyone's business case, but for me, that's something that I think about. So for example, a way that I've applied that to my business is we started out with designer women's workwear, high-end suiting, designer dresses, some accessories as well, at a very high price point for very seasoned, successful executives. But of course, this is a very small percentage of the population. I knew the population size, and I am still dedicated to that customer base. But the reality is it's a small market. Mm-hmm. And also the workplace has become more casual. That happened later. But I always knew that I was committed to a small market. And so it was always for growth with my customers, was learning what else I could provide for them. That was my growth, because I knew that my customer base couldn't really increase exponentially. It was a small market. I needed to serve it well. And then growth would be, okay, they own a suit and now they need shoes. They might need luggage. They might need jewelry. So we're growing into that set customer base. What happened? So that, I guess, was my view on growth. Post-pandemic, a lot of these women started working from home. Business business dress code became much more casual. And so this market that I had became smaller. So I could continue to serve them in the same way, but the opportunity became less. And that's when this idea of serving more people would lead to greater success was something that I really thought about, which led to us working B2B with corporations doing uniforms. And because we had 10 plus years of technical design expertise and patterning and fit and fabric testing, we had an entire library of incredible information in terms of design and fit, that we could take that intelligence and apply it to the mass market of the working class, people who are concierge, flight attendants, customer service personnel at hotels or at airports, and millions of more people, that we could slightly simplify our design. But clothing is, if clothing is really dependent on two things, in my opinion: a great fabrication and a great fit. And those are things that we knew a lot about, and we had great relationships with suppliers. So I switched my growth target to be not how many items can I serve my customers with, this kind of set amount of customers that was slowly growing, but how can we take all this knowledge that we have and serve a much bigger customer base with that. So really, I guess the growth is
Would you
finding an
say that
entirely
the
market.
necessity? So there's a slight delay. I was just asking, do you think that the pivot that you undertook within the business, do you feel it came from a place of COVID is happening and has happened? We want to, if this ever was to happen again, I can't say impenetrable, but we want to be there, being the front runners within the market, or is a place of things aren't going well, let's pivot?
Uh, Two things. Partially was, and there are personal reasons as well. So, two of the big factors that contribute to retail businesses failing are too much inventory. You get stuck with too much inventory, and you have too many brick and mortar leases. So your cash is locked up in your lease and your inventory. And if the music stops, like COVID, you're stuck with all of this. We were able to survive COVID, by working with some hospitals and making medical gowns and masks and things like that. But so that was a miracle. And after that, I felt that I didn't ever want to be in that situation again. We survived. We could have gone back into that business, but I didn't think the opportunity was there, perfectly honest. I didn't know when people would be going back to the office, so it didn't make sense. I could have just said, okay, we saved the business. We made medical gowns. Why don't I go do something completely different? But I feel like my work wasn't done. I had unfinished business, and customers, we're still ordering, but at a much smaller volume as we pivoted everything online. But I felt that pivoting the brick and mortar business online was going to be tricky, because our business was really a customer experience in the store. We had a great styling experience, very hard to replicate it online. We're doing it and it's working, but it's still capital intensive because we have to hold a lot of inventory to make it work. We do some drop shipping, so we experimented. But the other thing is that just kind of actually happened on its own. And I think, I guess just kind of we got lucky, is that flight attendants and hotels were a few of the clients that were still ordering. We were looking to see who's ordering. News anchors were ordering, flight attendants, and some concierge at hotels were looking for new clothes to wear. And so a flight attendant reached out and asked if she could do a group order for her private jet organization. So it was actually, I mean, we had been cold calling some airlines because it was something I wanted to do for a long time. But these were really inbound inquiries that came to us. And so we just replied and said, why don't we put together a collection? Why don't we pitch a design for you and see if you want to move forward with this as your new uniform? And we did, and they said yes. And then we did another one, and they said another client reached out to us too. And we said yes. And then we started having some credibility, and we could use those case studies to pitch to someone else. And then we were getting more meetings. And then it kind of snowballed and moved and kind of had a little bit of a life of its own. And so, that's how that worked out. And I think at the end of the day, if you make a great product that people need, and you have a decent online presence, sometimes opportunities come your way. So I would say I tried, we definitely put our best foot forward, but those opportunities, they were seeking our service. So they came to us. So very lucky.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge you faced pivoting over to an e-commerce based business and going direct to consumer?
Online, you always have to have something new, and your visuals have to be very strong. You're competing with companies, whether it's like Farfetch, for example, or even like Amazon, like these incredible websites that have beautiful videos. Even for like a $13 product, there'll be like a beautiful video on Amazon that shows you all the features. You can get it tomorrow. Or like Farfetch has incredible videos and models walking down. Even Saks has like, top tier models wearing the dress, and you're trying to sell something at the same price point, with, a very much more basic, we have beautiful photos, but we don't have that level of investment into the website. So when you go through our user experience compared to other websites where our customers are shopping, it doesn't match up. And it's a huge investment you have to make to get there. And, and also you have to always offer something new. You need a reason for people to come back. So it's a hugely capital intensive business. And there's a number of issues. People often order 10 things intending on keeping 2 or 3 items. So we actually moved warehouses last year because we needed to find a more affordable warehouse solution because the returns were so high. So there are a lot of challenges.
And strategically as a business, because I've worked with dozens of e-commerce brands and I know that's a big challenge. How have you strategically navigated that, whereby people order 10 items and they only keep 2 or 3?
We have our return policy as 30-day return policy, and then that's it. So we do kind of limit it that way. We started using a return. We have a return platform that we don't touch any of the returns. It's all automated now. So they're not requesting a return label or need to discuss it. So the fact that there's no labor on our part makes it really great. We use a company called Loop. And now we're using another feature called Offset, which is great, which basically people can pay $2 for return fee insurance. So they pay $2. And if they return something, it's free. Or if they don't return anything, they keep it, they've just paid the $2. And this company helps offset some of the shipping and returns. So, we know we're not alone in dealing with this challenge. And there are a lot of companies that are now coming up with solutions to help offset some of these costs and give some of the cost responsibility to the customer a little bit. So it's spread out a little bit more evenly. Otherwise, so many of us would almost go out of business with the shipping and returns, because you also have to provide no restocking fee, free shipping. It's really high. So thankfully we're very up to date on new resources, so that we don't, every time there's a problem, we're experiencing a problem, we know someone else is experiencing the problem, and we're trying to figure out what everyone else is doing. And so we're always looking at our competitors and looking at what apps they're using on their website as well. Like, we have an issue with this. What is so-and-so using? You can see what apps are on their website, and we're like, maybe they have a solution for this. And sometimes we find something and we look it up and we're like, this is a great solution. we're taking this from another website's idea. So, it's not too hard to see what your competition is doing in terms of technology to become more efficient, and to make sure you're not missing out on anything. So that's something we do a lot as well.
I think that's something that's massively overlooked as an entrepreneur and business owner, whereby people think it's just a case of what you're doing is top line strategy and everything that's focused on growth. But these really small weedly bits that you might be doing at 10 p.m. on a Thursday evening, where you're just scaring your competitors, you've maybe got Wappalizer on your computer, and you're analyzing the tools and softwares that they're using. Those are kind of the little small unsung pieces and responsibilities that you go through as an entrepreneur to figure out how to grow. And it's a lot of it is just it's razor edge margins to improve the business. And in silo and by themselves, they don't work. But then when you combine everything together, then you've actually got something that can really move the needle and push business forward. So I know your background, you worked at Morgan Stanley, and that's kind of where the business idea came from. You got promotion, you're like, where do I get affordable, fashionable clothing? But if you cast your mind back maybe just a little bit more to 20-year-old Nora, what advice would you give to her? What would be your one golden rule for life?
I would love to tell her lots of things, but I think, oh gosh, 20-year-old, at the time I was really focused on having a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger. And, I think, I guess I was focused on having a lot of fun, and I wanted to, but I think I did, I think I did a lot of things right. Like I'm just thinking, I was like, oh, you were having a lot of fun when you were 20, but on the other hand, like that's your 20s, you're kind of supposed to do that. And I guess looking back, I was always been like hard on myself, but I think I did a lot of things right, which was I always felt like I wanted to be an entrepreneur of some kind. And I didn't know how to build a business. So working in investment banking, on the banking side, where you spend your whole your analyst and associate years combing through balance sheets and making projections and learning how to use Excel and how to operate as a professional, and write effective emails, like all these amazing skills that you learn, set me up for success as a business person. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. And that was it was actually, I don't want to give myself the credit of saying that was my plan all along, but it was a little bit. I really wanted to learn how the world worked. So, I give myself a lot of credit for working hard to get that job. Advice I would say, I think I might say, to just not be so stressed out. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself. I would love to say now that it's all going to work out. Don't be so hard on yourself. So I guess, yeah, possibly something along those lines. And that just, don't give up, don't get discouraged, and keep trying, and it's all going to pay off. Because I worked really hard, and I put in a lot of hours as well. I guess I was thinking it was such a contrast. Like I would work very hard and then go and have like a really crazy weekend and then come in and work really hard, because I set goals for myself extremely high. But I guess I would say maybe try to like take less pressure, and then maybe not need to go out so hard on the weekends, like a more balanced life approach. But it's a bit, that's kind of a lifestyle in New York City.
What would you say that you've achieved that now? I know that you're 4 months into motherhood, but looking at that now, you're a bit more balanced between the two.
Someone gave me this exercise once that said, like, everyone has two competing versions of themselves, and you can draw them in on a piece of paper what the two personalities are. And one was a nurturing mom that stays at home with the dog in the suburbs, and this other version is a jet-setting business lady in the high heels, like with the slicked back hair, determined, very ambitious, not particularly family oriented. And I've definitely felt that conflict. And I think a lot of women feel that conflict, because it's really, being successful in business is a wonderful feeling, and being a mother is an absolutely incredible thing as well. Um, and to balance it, I think what just happens is somehow your life expands and you make room for everything. And then the time that I spend with my baby and my family is really special. And the time that I spend at work, I'm very focused and very efficient and don't waste time. And I think that's what a lot of women experience, is that when they're at work, they're just very efficient and they get home and that time is really special. So, but it definitely can be stressful when a child is sick and you can't even get that time to be efficient at work. And I'm still, I experienced that as a stepmom for a little while, but as when you're the direct parent, then you're the one at the end of the day always responsible. So I'm just going through something that obviously hundreds of millions of women have gone through before, and there's a lot of support also. So I'm very grateful for that.
Very well said. Are you a reader? Are you into any business books of such?
Yeah, no, I love reading. Uh, Lately, I've been kind of doing very light reading, not
What,
too.
what, what would you
Not
say are your top three book recommendations?
um, a book that was really influential when I was younger was Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, one of my favorites. I also read recently a book on negotiation, which was always something that I struggled with a little bit. It's called Getting More by Stuart Diamond, and I've read it a few times. And he teaches business negotiation at Wharton. And for anyone that kind of struggles with strategy, it really helped me think of different ways to have a really collaborative negotiation, productive negotiation
I'll put
with
the book on
business
my
partners.
list.
What's that?
I'll
Yeah,
put the book on my list.
it's good. Um, and then there's another book called The Goal. Have you heard of this one?
I haven't, no.
This one this is it's a book that's essentially a business operations textbook written as a novel. And this one I found particularly inspiring, because it's told from a factory owner's. He's the first person in the novel, and he goes from his personal life to problems at the factory. The factory is struggling, it can't meet the orders, it doesn't have the supply, there's part missing, and he has to get to the bottom of why the factory is not performing. But it teaches business operations from this first person experience, and also adds on a layer of the strain of the family life. So it's an incredible book, and anyone who is in business or any kind of manufacturing or production, I would absolutely recommend this. Also, if you've studied economics, you'll absolutely love it, because you'll understand that I studied economics in college. I was an economics major, and so it made it very easy to digest as well. But it was just brilliantly described problem solving in a factory. And it really also helped me with my supply chain issues. And even during the pandemic, I leased a factory to produce PPE, and I used all the principles in this book to optimize manufacturing the process in this factory. Every step of the supply chain, we need this many machines to increase our output. We need to hire this many workers at the end. And just that whole factory operation was, I don't know, it was very inspiring from that book. And so, I think that it's always helpful to read a book that might be your weakness area,
Hmm.
to help level up some skill set and build confidence. That might be obvious, but
Hmm.
it's hard to find time to read. And I also actively try to continue to learn and improve my skills. Since I started my business, I've done 2 entrepreneur boot camps in different areas that were like a multi-week long program where I would learn. I've taken classes. Right now I'm taking a 10-week marketing boot camp for e-commerce just to get an additional skill set. So I carve out 1 to 2 hours a week of just extra classes, extra learning. How do I improve my skill set in this new area that I know nothing about? Um, and so that is something, that pays off um, almost immeasurably.
What areas were these boot camps in? What type of skills were you really working on?
So okay, so the first one was it was basically entrepreneurship, how to build a pitch deck, a convincing pitch deck, how to pitch to investors, the pages you need in your pitch deck, and how to make a really great business plan. And you'd have a few very successful business mentors just ask you really hard questions. This doesn't make sense. How can you prove that? How have you tested it? And you'd practice pitching, like
What
we're
type of
going.
questions would they ask you?
Uh, okay, so what is the biggest risk to your business in 3 years? What's going to put your company out of business? Or how are you going to deal with this person can knock you off and not make it in China? Why should I invest in
Mm.
your business when someone can steal your ideas and make it in China? Um, you know, uh, I think questions like this, just poking holes, like you managed a team before, you've only been up to the associate level in banking. What makes you qualified to grow a multi-million-dollar business? You've never done it before. Like questions like this.
Are they subtly designed to agitate you a little bit as well?
Yeah, but I mean, it was like this was kind of like at the end of this program was a Shark Tank type thing. So there was a demo day. So you go and you
Okay.
pitch in front of a group of almost like sharks and in front of a room of people. So you spend 8 weeks doing these sessions, building out your business model, building out financial statements, and you have your prototypes. And at the end, there was a big demo day. And so you have your deck up on a screen and you pitch it in front of investors and things like that. And then they all voted on who had the best business plan, and that person won a cash prize. So that was like a business competition. So I won that competition that time,
Good for you. Congrats.
which yeah, that was really great. And that was very good for my self-esteem and confidence at that moment to know that at least I could communicate my ideas well. And it was not it was a tough group of people. It was not they were hard. They did not just want to tell you what you wanted to hear. And that I
Hmm.
used that money to make production that I needed to make. The next one I did so I understood financial statements really well and banking, but a pitch deck and entrepreneurship was different. I had never done that before. I could do a pitch deck for a capital raise, to build toll roads in Mississippi, which is kind of what I focused on. But this was completely different. Angel investing is completely different than anything I'd done before. So I learned the basics in
Hmm.
entrepreneurship. The next one was I did a similar program at FIT, which was fashion, building a fashion brand. I didn't have any experience in fashion. I had taken pattern making, draping, and sewing. Like I learned those basics. I went to FIT and bought textbooks, and I learned how to sewing machine. So I learned all those basics as well because I didn't have the fundamental knowledge in the industry I was going into. So I took those classes and I learned it, and that was incredibly fun and rewarding. So I think education more than anything is something that shouldn't be underestimated in terms of growth. The more you know, the more you can put to work. So there's so much that goes into a business. So with FIT, that one was a 12-week program, tons of homework, branding, marketing, inventory management, case studies we did. And then at that one, at the end, there was a pitch competition as well. And that one, there were hundreds of people that applied. I think like 400 or 500 people applied. 20 companies were selected, and there were 2 winners at the end. And I was one of the 2 winners at the end of that one as well. And that was really rewarding because I'm not like fashion native. I'm coming from the finance world. So I felt great that I could get the business part, the pitch deck right. As a banker, I'm very familiar with PowerPoint presentations. So that did help. But fashion is not my area of expertise. I
Hmm.
only took these basic classes, and it was an area that I really wanted to. That was where, that's the industry I'm in. And so, that moment of getting that award, I think Tommy Hilfiger handed me the big check at the end and the prize. And that was just like, totally a career highlight to be getting that award from such a prestigious university in New York City. And so that was huge. And now this marketing class I'm taking, is really about just digital marketing, SEO, all that stuff on the back end, how the websites are working these days, which is totally different from how they're working from when I started. How do you on the back end make your company show up high in the rankings? What words do you use? to speak directly to your customer, understanding who she is, not just SEO, like AdWords, what people are keywords, but also the customer as well. And so all these things, part of, moving this business to be e-commerce is talking to her in a specific way on the website. And for our uniform business, we've now separated the two because I realized they're a different customer. So every single word on that website, the Nora Gardner brand, that has to be talking to a certain person. You're talking to someone. You don't always talk to the same, your nanny for your child. You're kind of like talking kind of like a different way. There's just kind of like a different way that you're communicating with people to get like on the same page and talk about totally different topics. And in terms of the uniform business, the customer is an executive or human resources executive at a hotel or an airline. They're looking for something completely different. You have to use different language, different words. And so understanding how you communicate that through the entire website experience to optimize it is something, this kind of learning is really helping, because it's not an in-person experience anymore. It's completely online. So everything has to kind of be aligned with the message you're trying to express on the website, from like whether it's the landing page to the checkout page, and the images all the way through has to make sense. So we've just split out those website, and I'm trying to basically learn what's the best way to talk to this customer and make this experience on this website specific for this brand. And this website, I'm talking to a different person, so the experience has to be different for that customer.
Definitely. I've just started reading a book called Talking to Idiots. So I can't give you my perspective on or takeaways from the book, but from the first 10, 15 pages that I've read, they essentially say, the author speaks about, he was in college and he found that I could talk really easily and fluidly with these people here, but then I really struggled to talk with these people. And he said that this was a boss of his before. He would just dub anyone who couldn't coherently understand him as an idiot. And it caught my attention because I thought, exactly to your point of what you've made there, you've got a brand, and what you have on the website is your messaging. And the messaging that you use for one segment of your market is going to be completely different to the other segment of your market. So it's understanding the linguistics, the NLP that needs to be used in order to coherently and efficiently speak to subsets of your market. And I think that's probably the most important element of advertising, is understanding and nailing your messaging. And I find one of the best exercises that entrepreneurs and business owners can take is conducting really small focus groups and getting direct feedback from who they think is their ideal audience, or even, you don't need to go that far, but using your email mailing list to then really activate and see what tonality and messaging works really well. Anything that can just give you quick, immediate feedback is one of the best things that I've seen work well whenever I've done my own marketing or worked with brands to that part. Nora, I've got a question for you from the internet. Now, this blends into everything you've mentioned here. So it reads, a fellow entrepreneur said, how would you recommend developing a brand that doesn't blend into the market and is featured in publications?
So, what would be an example of this? So, like a brand that doesn't fit into the market that's featured in publications. So, would this be like a new product that doesn't exist? Or I'm trying to think of like an example.
So the question is very vague. It's very holistic, based on. So we can make up a situation. Let's take a. How would you, I guess, from your expertise of how you've stood out in your market, how would you go about strategizing that to someone who's coming up? I guess if we flip the tangent, if we look at the Shark Tank type of scenario, they were the sharks before, you're the shark now, and you're looking and assessing someone's business and seeing how they could best pivot and orientate their messaging. So A, their brand looks unique, and B, they could get the social press similar to what you've achieved with your business.
I think the most helpful exercise that I always do is I create a persona
Mm-hmm.
for the product and the end customer. I even give her a name or him a name and describe their lifestyle. Do they have kids? Where they went to school? How much money did they make? Where they live? What is their day to day? Even have a photo of them and have conversations with someone like that and really understand who this customer is and make sure this is directly someone that would buy this product. And then discovered the best way, maybe it's by interviewing people, the best way that they would want to buy this product, or figure out how this person is buying if you have a track record. So for example, for me, I created a persona for my fashion label, and it's a lawyer. She had 2 kids. She's Ivy League educated, obviously has a graduate degree. She's living in New York City. She has a house in the country. She doesn't have a lot of time. She doesn't always fly first class, but she does like to stay in very high end places. So she's traveling a lot. And I just described this woman and realized, she wasn't very price sensitive, but she did care a lot about customer service. She doesn't have a lot of time to return things. She wants a really easy process and things to be taken care of for her. The packaging to be beautiful, very easy to return, and very consistent sizing. And that's part of customer service, like making the product really, really consistent. But she'd be willing to pay a lot of money for that. And so, and also part of the reason we had brick and mortar stores in very convenient locations is that she could just buy something on her way home. So we had stores in convenient locations, amazing customer service, amazing quality, definitely not the cheapest. And that's how we got right in front of her. So I would suggest to anyone who's trying to find a way to promote their brand and connect to their customers is to really go deep into this persona and make sure it's exactly who that is, and then understand how they would best or most likely purchase the item you're selling.
Mm-hmm. That was a really impressive dissection of that root of the question. I'm really
I hope I
impressed.
answered the right question. I hope I understood it correctly.
Yeah, I think you did. I've taken a lot of snippets away from how you broke everything down there. So, yeah, amazing response to that. Nora, where can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn under Nora Gardner. On social media, it's Nora Gardner NYC. NoraGardner.com is our fashion brand, and
Mm-hmm.
livinguniforms.noragardner.com is our new uniform website.
And lastly, to wrap up, what does 2025 have in store for you and the brand?
We're very excited to expand our uniform business with more offerings. We're launching outerwear, we're launching sweaters, we're expanding our menswear collection, which is really exciting. Polo shirts, more blouses and high-tech technical fabrics with sweat wicking properties, breathable bamboo materials as well. So we think that we'll be bringing something really great to the uniform space as well. And we have a new spring collection coming out for Nora Gardner too. So we'll be working on the two in tandem and hopefully making people feel confident and comfortable as they go about their workday.
Exciting, exciting. Nora, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Joe. Have a great day.
Same to you.